Hello everyone, my name is Ryan and I'll be taking a look at the coronavirus, in particular a specific data set from Johns Hopkins, and I'll be analyzing it as it evolves, as it spreads across the globe, and I'll be sharing that information with you on a regular basis. That way you could get a general idea of what's happening in the world and what we're heading towards. So first of all, to disclose, I have no background in medicine or being a doctor or anything of that nature. I have no idea about that. However, I am a data science student still in university, and I'll just be analyzing the trends, the data set, doing some interesting stuff with it, hopefully more interesting as I get more time to do this. And just to get a general idea, I'm going to try to be as objective as possible, just speaking straight facts, exactly what I'm seeing, and hopefully that will help you all out. So without further ado, let's begin. This is the Johns Hopkins website. I'm sure some of you have seen it. We can see total number of cases by region, by country. So the first thing we notice is huge congestion in Asia, obviously due to the epicenter being in China. We also see a huge bubble in South Korea, and the numbers are growing pretty rapidly there. We'll be looking at that in a bit. This is the Diamond Princess, the cruise ship, Japan, 256. So a lot happening in that region. In the Middle East, we have Iran, which is the biggest bubble. There are also certain other places, United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. But it's important to note that a lot of places, especially Iran in the Middle East, are not reporting the numbers correctly. They're underreporting them. Here in Europe, we see a huge bubble in Italy. Also, there are 3 bubbles for Spain, France, and Germany. The numbers are rising there pretty rapidly. We then can take a look at North America, where the numbers are pretty low. But that may be due to the fact that they're not testing everyone for the coronavirus, just people that had links to China and Milan. At least that's what was happening in the past few days. I'm not sure about currently, but that may explain why the numbers are so low, whereas I expect the numbers to be a lot higher. South America and Africa report very low cases, but once again, that's probably incorrect, and that's probably due to the fact that they're not testing, or at least not all the countries are testing properly. So the next interesting thing to look at are the number of new infections in the past 24 hours. We see South Korea leading this, followed by Italy, Iran, Germany, France, Spain, Japan, UK, and the US. These are updated more than every 24 hours, so these numbers are not 100% accurate. We'll take a look more into detail afterwards. But South Korea, 1,062 from the last time this site updated. That's a big jump. But they're taking drastic measures to stop this, but it doesn't seem to be working too well. What's also important is the number of deaths are lower than the number of of recovered, but that's not included in this data set. And I won't be talking about that today, probably tomorrow or something like that. So let's start looking at the data. So this is split up by region, by continent/region. Now what we can tell is that regardless of the region, it seems that there is an exponential growth. So I heard a lot of people saying that if there's more sunlight or more heat, then this virus may slow down, or there may not be too many new cases. But I can't really tell since I'm not a doctor, or I don't know anything with medicine. But looking at the trends, it seems that it's an exponential growth and it's still very early. Here, Asia is minus China, so I'm not even including China in Asia. And if China itself is at around 80,000, then that may be the peak, at least for specific countries. So I'm expecting these numbers to rise a lot in the near future. There's no sign of slowing down, at least not now. So expect these numbers to rise. Asia is leading the way, followed by Europe, followed by the Middle East, and then North America, Oceanic countries, South America, and Africa follow suit. The next thing to look at are the number of new cases. This thing is a bit more interesting. What's most interesting here is the volatility. It's not rising as steadily as we've seen with the number of total cases. But here we see in Asia, minus China, there's a decrease in number of new cases. It's still all above 0, which is very important. It means that the total number of cases is not decreasing. It's always increasing. And it's increasing at pretty high rates. I mean, yesterday there was 846 new cases in Asia without China. And today, 617. The only good news in Asia is that the number of new cases is decreasing. And we'll take a look at the percentage change after, and that should make more sense. but the rate of change seems to be decreasing a bit. But as we've seen before, that is not permanent. It could go down then go back up. But it's just safe to say that for now, it's not going to be increasing, or it just decreased from yesterday. That's all we can see. Europe, however, has a very steep increase from 372 up to 737. That's around a 400% increase in a day. That's pretty high in terms of new cases. Middle East, also pretty steep, but not as steep as Europe. So I'm going to keep taking a look, an eye out for Europe in the next coming days. I live in Europe, I live in Madrid. The situation is pretty relaxed. People don't seem to be taking this seriously, and because of that, it's just going to keep increasing, and people are going to get the virus. So let's take a look at the percentage change before we look at individual countries. Okay, so percentage change, what's most interesting is South America. It went from 0 up to 300%. What's interesting there is that the cases before were pretty low. So if we take a look at South America, we see it only at 2 cases. So a 2 case to 8 case increase is not that big, but in terms of percentages, it's a big jump. But I'm going to exclude it for now, so we can take a look at the other the other regions. Okay, same with Africa. It's small number increases. Okay. So in the last few days, the percentage increases have gone up in Middle East and Europe, as I've suspected, but have gone down in Asia, North America, and have stabilized in the oceanic countries. What I've suspected in Middle East and in Europe is that this is not taken very seriously. It's seen as something very minute and not important. So little restrictions are taking place. At least here in Madrid, there are no restrictions at all. Everything is open. Public gatherings are open. There was El Clasico yesterday, a big football match. So I'm expecting these numbers to keep rising. The percentage increase is probably going to rise as well. Same thing in the Middle East. What we can also notice, which is very interesting, is the bumps. So there is a first bump here between day 0 and day 15. Then a second bump between day, I would say 28, until current. What's interesting here is the period in which there's stability. It seems to be a 2-week period, which could be due to the incubation period, in which people are realizing they have the symptoms. So what I can expect is that there could be another bump in the near future, in the next 2 weeks, in which people getting infected right now, which I think is going to be a huge infection, don't know it yet, and they're spreading it around. Since we found out that this virus can spread without showing any symptoms, and as early as 24 to 48 hours, I believe, from the time of infection. So I expect in the next 2 weeks, there will be a third bump, and it will be very high. So let's take a look at China. Okay, so what's interesting about China is the fact that it increased very rapidly, and then from around the 25th day to now, it's stabilizing. It's still going up, but it's going up at a more stable rate. And I think that's because of the drastic measures, the draconian measures that China is taking. And I think that's showing a pretty good impact. We can see here by the number of new infections, it also seems to be stabilizing. There's this huge spike in day 21, but this may be due to the fact that they changed the terminology of what they consider someone to be infected by Covid19. You know, what exactly does that entail? And that's why it's stabilized again. But in all, the numbers were a lot higher in terms of new infections before, and now it seems to be a lot lower. It went from 2,000, actually higher, 4,000, down to around 575. So good news coming out from China. This is further proved by the daily percentage change. There were huge percentage changes here, and now it seemed to be stabilizing. There's only been a 0.72% increase of cases from yesterday to today. Great news in China, showing the effectiveness of good measures. Let's take a look now at South Korea, Italy, and Iran. Okay, so South Korea, still very high. It seems as though it was increasing more steeply from here to here, from 2 days ago to yesterday, and it's starting to stabilize, but I really can't tell anything. It's definitely going to increase in the future. Italy has a very steep increase, and Iran as well. These numbers are going to keep going up, that's for sure. What's interesting here is South Korea and Italy. So South Korea's new cases was a lot higher yesterday than today. They're taking very strict measures. I heard that there are drive-thrus to get tested instead of going to the hospital, which is great. That way you don't contaminate the hospitals and you get less people sick. The numbers are still increasing. There are still 586 new cases today. However, it seems to be stabilizing. It seems to be dropping a bit. But as we've seen here, it can still drop and go back up. So we haven't seen persistent decrease of new infections. But I'm very optimistic that this remains lower. Now, the contrary is occurring in Italy. There's a spike from 240 cases up to 566. That's more than double, I believe. That's a big increase. Italy is not taking the proper measures. And so are the other countries in Europe, unfortunately. They're not taking the proper measures. I think the period of time in which this should have been contained has been elapsed already. And finally, Iran as well, taking horrible measures to curb this. And so the numbers, unfortunately, the new infections are going to increase at a faster rate. And so this is going to keep increasing at an exponential rate. Yeah, very unfortunate. Here, in terms of daily percentage change, we once again see this. There's that spike in Italy when people found out about this case and they started testing. But let's take a look at the last 2 days. We see that Iran is leading the way in terms of percentage change. Their infections are growing at the fastest rate, followed by Italy. And then South Korea seems to be decreasing or slowing down in its growth of this new virus there. I really hope that continues. But Italy needs to take drastic measures, and Iran too, but I doubt anything will happen for a bit. Okay, so now taking a look at the United Kingdom, the US, Spain, and Germany. These are fast growers. Okay, very interesting to take a look at them in particular. Okay, so what we first notice here, and I find this very interesting, is that there's always a bump, then a second bump, and then the big exponential rise. It shows that there is a cutoff period of containment, in my opinion. And I think that that period has already passed. I mean, we're already in that exponential growth. So drastic measures need to be taken right now. If not, this is going to continue to grow, and this may infect a lot of people, seeing as the R naught, or the number of people that an infected person can infect, is around 2.5, which is very high. It's almost double that of the common flu. I heard a lot of people comparing it to the flu. It's nothing compared to the flu. Okay, so Germany has the highest number of infected people at 130. Spain follows suit with 84. And what's interesting is that it passed US, and the US was passing it for the past week plus. And now it passed the US. The US's growth is a lot slower. And I live in Spain, I live in Madrid, and there are no measures taking place. Still public events are open, everything of that nature. So I expect these numbers to rise. In the UK, it's growing at a slower rate, but it may still be in the beginning. So it may have just hit that cutoff period, in which case it will continue to increase rapidly. Okay, so now let's take a look at the number of new infections. Once again, horrible numbers from Europe. I'm disappointed. Honestly, I thought that they would do a lot more to curb this, but apparently not. We see that Germany is leading the way in terms of new infections. They had 51 new infections from yesterday, and Spain had 39. Remember the volatility I was talking about? So yesterday, I observed that there was a decrease in new cases in Spain, going from 17 down to 13. But as we've seen, there's always decreases and then increases that are sharper, in which case it went from 13 up to 39. And I think there could be another drop and then a further increase, but the general trend is the number of new infections per day is increasing, so the rate of infection is increasing a lot. In the UK, it's also higher, and the US is still in that early stage, so it's not too clear. Looking at the daily percentage change, we also notice that Spain is leading the way. Spain is getting more patients, more infected people at a quicker rate than previous days. So that's concerning for Spain, and I live there, so and I could tell that this was going to happen. Germany's percentage change is stable from yesterday. once again, we can't really tell. So I hope these numbers stable, but once again, it's important to notice that none of these numbers are below zero. So there are always new infections and the number are increasing quickly. I mean, when you start getting up to 500 or 100, 200, it becomes impossible to contain because those people start infecting, 2.5 other people per person. So it starts getting into a mess. Yeah, but these are the numbers for those countries. And the last thing is Japan. Okay, so let's take a look at Japan. Okay, number of new infections has been increasing rapidly. However, it seems to not be increasing at as fast of a rate as the other countries we've seen, in particular Europe and the Middle East, and certain Asian countries, certain other Asian countries. It seems to be growing more linearly. The number of new infections is also staying relatively stable. There are those fluctuations, but it stays pretty stable. Right now, there are 15 new patients, new infected people from yesterday. But in Japan, we've seen decreases and stability closer to zero than other countries. So I hope that they can reduce this. And finally, in terms of daily percentage change, it seems to be nearing the zero mark. It's at 6%, so 6% increase of infected people from yesterday. But I really hope this stays low, and Japan is doing a great job, as you can see strictly from the numbers. So that's all I got for today. I don't have too much information. Hopefully I'll have more time to do this tomorrow when new numbers come out, and hopefully I can give you guys more updates and help you understand what's happening. So quick notes to wrap this up. The numbers seem to be increasing around the world, and they're increasing quickly at rapid rates. Certain countries are taking more drastic measures, and it's shown that this is actually working, as the number of infected cases or the rate of change is actually decreasing over time. And countries that are not doing anything about it and are allowing business as usual to continue, the cases seem to be increasing and increasing at quicker rates. So we can expect a lot more new cases in those countries. Now, in terms of how to stay safe, I think just basic precautions, hand sanitizing, always washing your hands, touching doorknobs and touching other things in which an infected person may have coughed on it or may have infected it. It's important to always wash your hands and wash them very thoroughly. Don't touch your nose, your mouth, your eyes. It's extremely hard to do it, and I'm pretty sure I've done it throughout the video. But especially when you're not in your home and you've not disinfected yourself, make sure to not touch your face or your mouth or your, any membranes in which the virus could go in. So that's all I got for today. Please take care, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, and I'll give you some new updates on what's happening in terms of the coronavirus. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.